I was born loving Formula One, and I pursued my impossible dream. You know, this was truly the probably the ultimate satisfaction, you know, in my career as a race driver, mainly because it all began there. And then that was obviously what you dream about. You dream about the maximum. And what I was getting my inspiration was from current world champions at the time, Alberto Ascari. I want to be like Alberto Ascari, you know, and that sort of thing. And as fate would have it.
Welcome everybody to F1 Beyond the Grid, and my guest this week is the 1978 world champion Mario Andretti. Mario, it is wonderful to have you on the show. You look like a man who still has a spring in his step, still loves being around racing.
Still standing.
Mario, we're talking at the Miami Grand Prix. Do you still love showing up, going racing?
Absolutely. I mean, I always say, as they say here, this is my rodeo, you know, and I mean, I live for the sport. It's something that has captured my imagination, you know, when I was just barely a young teenager, and with my twin brother Aldo, and so as you can see, it was right at the beginning of Formula One, you know, when I was 10 years old when Formula One was born, basically. So, but the way that Italy was, you know, so much part of it with Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, you can imagine that it pretty much dominated the news, sport news, you know, whether it was written or you know, just, you know, we could only see videos in the movies. You know, they would have intermission during the movie to let the smoke out. And then when they would come back in for the film, they would show news around the world. And I think in Formula One specifically was dominating the sport news always. And I used to go to the movie just for that.
Now, the sport has changed a huge amount since Nino Farina won the first race at Silverstone in 1950 for Alfa Romeo. But would you agree that the essence of the sport, the DNA of the sport, remains the same today, 75 years later?
100%. 100%. And I think it has only gained, I mean, it's like a religion. It's a global religion, really. I don't care where you go in the world, and Formula One. You mentioned Formula One, everybody knows what it is. So it had arrived a long time ago, but now it's really.
How has the challenge of driving changed? Let's talk about that. You made your Formula One debut, Watkins Glen, 1968. Your swan song, 15 years later, Caesar's Palace, 1982, with Ferrari. How did the challenge of driving change during that period?
Well, obviously, the sport evolves, no question. I mean, the technical side is at the avant-garde. It's at the top of the knowledge in that respect, and that's really part that attracted me to Formula One. And you're always looking forward to something better. And that's what I've seen. I mean, I look back and how fortunate I was to be part of the evolution of aerodynamics with the ground effects, which we came about almost by accident. It's a long story about that. Sometime I will tell you. But nevertheless, I mean, looking back, how that changed the world. But you're always looking for something better. And as a driver, what are you looking for? To go quicker through the corners.
What about the challenge? Can we compare a qualifying lap of the Lotus 79 of 1978 versus the Lotus 49 of 1968? How different were your inputs in the cockpit?
Well, the challenge is the same because it's all about extracting 100% of what that car can give you. Leave nothing on the table. That's the whole thing. and you're only going to achieve that if you're somewhere in a sweet spot, and that's sometimes not as easy as you would think. And that's the engineering side. That's the relationship between driver, engineer, and all of that. Because every race car has 1,001 adjustments, and everything can either take you in the right or the wrong direction. But it's all about feel and communication, understanding. And when I look back, I said, "Oh, this engineer was really, I could just, the individual could understand what I was saying." And the next one, when I would talk, just my words would bounce off his forehead, that type of thing.
Did the cars of the 60s and early 70s require more finesse from the driver than, let's say, the ground effect era?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's the more downforce that you have, obviously, it takes it sort of it does some of the work for you in a sense, obviously, but when you have more downforce, you expect it to go that much quicker. So it's still relative. I mean, the driver does make a difference. The different talents, we've seen that. And sometimes you have the same car and two drivers, and one driver can do better than the other. So it's all of that. I mean, it's nothing that you could say you do this, and that, and you got it. No. I mean, I don't care how long you are in this business. There's always something out there that mystifies you. And again, that's why whenever you think you get it, it's so satisfying. But it's not that just because you got it today, you're okay tomorrow. That's the point.
I remember seeing you driving the McLaren at Austin in 2022. Now, it wasn't quali laps, I know that. But how different was that experience for you?
Well, it was different, but then it was as much different as you think it would be. It's the same. From there, I went from the two-seater Indy car that I drive all over to the Formula One car of maybe 2 years old or something. Everything that I experienced there, I expected. And, if I would have been away from it, say, 10, 20 years like I was officially, it was something. But I still had my hand in it in one way or another. Yes, more power and all of that sort of thing. Formula One, the braking is phenomenal. My cockpit was not really perfect because I couldn't reach the pedals, and then the steering wheel was right in my chest and all that sort of thing. But I got the essence of it, and nothing really totally surprised me because I was never really away from all of it. With Michael, having a team, I've done had done some recent high-speed testing in an Indy car. So anyway, you're in a modern racing car and all that. So I keep up with what's going on, type of thing.
But did you come away from that experience in 2022 fully in the belief that Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, all the stars of today could have got the job done back in the 60s?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always said, yesterday's champion will be champion today. I said that, and it's a fact. That's one thing that I know it's a fact. The difference is what you're driving as far as the technical side of it and all that. But the human element, as much as today you have data, you have all of that information, and the engineers know exactly what you're doing when you're out there and all that, it's a help. But the human side has not changed. Trust me.
Okay. What about the technical side? Can we talk about that? Because you witnessed some of the most fundamental technical changes in the sport's history, actually. What is the biggest change that you experienced?
Well, the biggest change, I think, and the most powerful has been aerodynamics, the aerodynamic development, because that covers up potential mistakes all over, as far as the mechanical mistakes and or not mistakes. I mean, it's just the what's missing.
Yeah, flaws in the car.
Flaws. Yeah, and but that is for sure. I think anyone will tell you that, the aerodynamic side of it.
So front wings appeared on the Lotus at Monaco in '68 for the first time. It was a Colin Chapman invention. How do you as a driver learn to deal with that extra grip?
Oh, easy.
Was that okay?
That comes natural.
Right.
I mean, there's something that it gets, I was the first one to have chin spoilers in my Indy car in 1967. And I copied that from seeing the Chaparral, the sports car, and because we had a ducktail in the car, so there was aerodynamic effect. And actually, I remember that they put a bigger tail in the back to have more airflow, for the gearbox. But we put a ducktail to it, and the first test that I did, my front end was flying. I said, we have downforce. And then all of a sudden, we put chin spoilers on, and the next race was in Trenton, New Jersey. Put the car on pole and led every lap.
So as a driver, you're embracing the downforce. What about ground effect? Was that a little bit of a step into the unknown? Did you just have to sort of trust the car and not rely on instinct?
Well, you have to trust the car because it's speeds that you wouldn't need through the corner that you never expected. So, when you have good solid ground effects, the breakaway is not progressive usually. It's sudden, so that's something that you talk about. You have to have that trust, be ready. It's a different, field that you obviously have to deal with and learn how to deal with and feel, ready whenever it goes, type of thing.
How interesting, because that breakaway you've just described, we see today. The drivers complain of the car suddenly snapping, don't they?
Snap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ground effect was banned at the end of '82. The official line was that the cars were getting too quick. Do you agree?
Well, to some degree, yes. I think I remember that, in fact, when the last Formula One car that I drove, the Ferrari in 1982, they had so much front COP and center of pressure that they had to reverse the wing. Actually, instead of putting more effect, with the wing to balance the rear, you had to reverse the front wing to balance the car because it was too planted on the front. So that was sort of weird. But at that point, it was so much effect that I agree that the regulators had to do something, because it took away something very important from the driver as far as really identifying situations, and I think it was a right move on the technical side to pull it back somewhat, because you could technically have enough downforce that you just go, and that would not be a sport.
Another change I wanted to ask you about was turbos. Renault introduced them in 1977. They won their first race with them in 1979. How difficult was it to drive those early turbo cars?
It was, yes, because actually the normally aspirated side didn't have much power. There was just almost like an explosion with the power went on. And here's the experience that I had. I was out of Formula One, for the whole season, in '82, and I had never driven a Formula One turbo. And when I obviously tested a Ferrari just before Monza, There's some learning to do there because, as I said, when the power came on, especially on in the qualifying mode, we had like 1,100 horsepower. And when the thing
Can you describe what that felt like?
I can describe the Lesmo. The Lesmo is 2 right-hand corners with a short straightaway. I was getting wheel spin in 4th gear in the Lesmos when I put the car on pole. That's how much power you had. It was a wonderful, frightening experience.
Well, I guess that you're laughing about it now, but was it actually quite terrifying?
Yeah, but I loved it. You love to be terrified by horsepower.
This episode is sponsored by Masterclass. What's something your mum's always wanted to do? Maybe write that novel or dive into photography. Whatever it is, this Mother's Day, you can finally help her make it happen with Masterclass. Masterclass helps you learn from the best to become your best. It's the only streaming platform where you can grow with over 200 of the world's top experts. Imagine unlocking the secrets of innovation with Gen AI leaders, mastering critical thinking with Neil deGrasse Tyson, or even gaining media literacy insights with Noam Chomsky. They've even got Lewis Hamilton teaching you how to channel a winning mindset. One thing I loved about his class is how he talks about the importance of resilience, saying failure is 100% necessary for greatness. That perspective really hits home whether you're on the track or tackling challenges in life. What's great about Masterclass is how easy it is to fit learning into your life. You can watch classes on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even listen in audio mode while you're on the go. And the content is top-notch. 88% of members say that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. And it's a fantastic gift too, whether it's for your parents, friends, or even yourself. Learning from the best not only sharpens your skills, but gives you that edge. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't wait to start your journey of lifelong learning. Our listeners always get great discounts on Masterclass of at least 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/grid. See Masterclass's latest deal, at least 15% off at masterclass.com/grid. Slick tyres. Introduced, I think it was Spain 1971. How much adaptation did that require?
No adaptation at all. All it was just more grip. More grip is something that you, obviously, that's what you're looking for. And that was easy. Can I tell you a little story about that?
That's what we're here for.
1967, Indianapolis. I was testing, obviously compounds and construction and so on and so forth. And we were coming up to Christmas, close. And usually the engineers would groove the tires, to give you maybe better grip, by putting different grooves and so forth. And we were coming up to, they wanted to test one construction. And they said we didn't have time to groove the tires, and they were slick. They said they were slick tires. Be careful. I went out there and I went 4 miles an hour faster than it's ever been. I set a record. But can you imagine the engineers? We joke about it today. The engineer still didn't buy it. He said, because if there's any sand anywhere, you need the grooves. With the slick, you would wind up in a grandstand. It's amazing. It took 4 years before they decided slick is the way to go.
How amazing!
I have that story,
Yeah.
and that's so. And as I say, it just it took some theory that it was a wrong theory, but even the engineers stood by it. You needed to have grooves because so and so, in case you get out on the marbles and all that. Well, you know what? I'll take slicks all day.
How much of the developments at that time were accidental?
Oh, a lot,
Yeah.
a lot. And it was, and the trick was to identify certain things too. And being honest. In a sense, because many engineers says, some of the drivers, they're afraid to offend us. If we think that we have something better and it's not. So they kind of appease. And so you have to be brutally honest. I think my first test that I did, actually, the first trial that I had in an IndyCar was in Trenton, New Jersey. And I was up against Roger Ward and Parnelli Jones, just obviously established drivers. And they put some test tires on me. And the comment that they said, "We want you again because you're brutally honest."
Didn't want
And something resonated to me. It's just, so you have to tell them like it is, and sometimes it's amazing that something that they estimate, back at the test, test shop or something, it doesn't really always come out the way it should. So you have to, and sometimes the engineers are very disappointed because they're all excited about it, but it doesn't happen. So like I said, it's a trial and error, trust me.
And your brutal honesty, is that something that the technical whiz Colin Chapman at Lotus loved about you as well?
I think so, because again, I said it like it was, in that sense, and they said, "Why is that?" I said, "That's the way it is." And there was another aspect too about I was insisting on not taking so much risk, as far as suspension pieces and so on and so forth. They wanted to. Well, anyway, there's certain things they wanted to do, and I put a kibosh, to it, and so.
Interesting that you mentioned suspension pieces, because that was another development I wanted to ask you about. Active suspension. Now, it wasn't raced in Formula One until the late 80s, and then, of course, Williams then dominated the early 90s with active suspension. But 1980, Lotus trialled, I think it was Peter Wright who came up with it, a computer-controlled hydraulic system, which was the sort of early days of active suspension. What was that like?
Well, I never experienced that, but I know my son Michael did during that period, and it's something that was actually activated from the pits. They could change the setup of the car, from the pit, and they could either make it better or worse, quite honestly. And but here again, you could do that today. So everything could be automatic. You could have it automatic, so you can just change the wing angles and all that. But here again, you have to get back to basics. So it's a sport. So it has to be done manually and all that. I agree with all of that, because again, the technology aspect has dramatically just blossomed, over the decades. And you could have a car that actually drives itself. Let's face it, they have it on the road. You could have it in a race car. So you have to be very careful. And it's a fine line, even for the technicians that develop the rules. Just let's be realistic. Let's keep it a sport. So you have to do things manually. That's the fact.
What about safety? What was the biggest safety development during your career?
Well, the biggest safety development is to start dealing with it with fervor, without dealing directly with the safety aspect. I don't think the sport would have survived as it became more commercial. And the reason I'm saying this, and I've said it a million times, that when companies invest millions of dollars to be part of a team, they don't want to go to funerals. And the sport was obviously in many of the early decades was very cruel. We all know that. And I don't think the sport would have survived unless safety would have been dealt with vigorously. And luckily, we had, as drivers, that's how we organized the GPDA. Not for anything. There was not for, it was all for safety. And I remember, and it was about not just the car, the circuits and everything else. And today, drivers have the best chance ever to retire on their own terms. And you couldn't have said that even 10, 15 years ago. Even though, it was progressing, but it was just a progression. It took a while, just like even the circus. Remember, used to have at the beginning, some of the key corners, more dangerous corners, you had the catch fences. Well, they did something good, but then many things bad. So, you had to try things. And it was trial and error in a lot of areas, but you can tell with the circus now, the runoffs, and even on the ovals, they have, the safe barriers and all that. All of that is a wonderful thing for the sport.
And in terms of individual safety developments, I mean, in your time, you went from open face to closed face helmets. The overalls improved, didn't they? Is there one thing that you would single out as the biggest safety development?
Probably the fire, to contain the fire, because there were many, many drivers paid the ultimate price by not having a single broken bone, but with fire. And I think once we were able to contain that, and part of it, the technology came out of the Vietnam War. With the fuel cells that they used to have developed for the helicopters, that would keep a 20 millimeter, gun bullet, from exploding. So, and that's one of the biggest things that I think really helped us, from. You don't see, like I said, very, very seldom you see a fire, in our sport anymore.
How did you deal with the ever-present danger? I think for a lot of people listening to this, getting into a racing car in your era, knowing that fire was an ever-present danger, how did you compartmentalize that? How do you deal with that?
Well, you don't you just don't deal with the negatives. You just if you were going to try to reason everything out, you will never get in a race car at that point. You knew what you knew. You knew that it was dangerous. I think the love and passion for it just overrode everything. It's again, I get that question many times. Even then, you lost your best friend. How can you keep going? Well, he would have done the same thing, or he or she. They would have done the same thing, and it's just the way it is. If you're going to be in it, you're going to be, but you just don't deal with it. You just don't dwell with it, with the negative.
And did your attitude to those negatives change as you got older? I mean, you were 42 when you drove your last race. Were you thinking about the danger? I'm talking last Formula One race.
Oh, no. I mean, no. Nothing changed.
Children, did that affect you?
Should have, but it didn't. It's here again. If you start thinking in those terms, you don't belong, because then you're even more dangerous to yourself. Because I don't know, there's something there that maybe it's an abstract, but that's the way I'm thinking. You have to stay on the positive, because. I don't know how to even explain that. Maybe you have to be a little bit stupid or something.
Or Mario,
a little bit crazy.
But Mario, is it actually an arrogance as well? I'm too good, I won't crash.
Yes. You have to believe in that. All of that. Like I said, just again, if you want to get into it, there were so many negatives there. If you dwelled on it, you did not. You were not going to lower yourself into the cockpit.
This episode is sponsored by Saily. As an F1 fan, you know that being connected is essential. Whether you're tracking race updates, live streaming about your favourite driver's moves, or staying in touch while travelling to a Grand Prix. But finding reliable internet abroad can be a nightmare. And that's why I'm excited to introduce you to Saily, the eSIM app that keeps you connected wherever you are. Saily makes travelling with mobile data effortless. You just download the app once, install the eSIM, and you're good to go. No need to swap SIMs every time you cross a border. Plus, with affordable plans in over 190 countries and 8 regions, you can say goodbye to roaming fees. Whether you're headed to multiple races or just exploring a new city, Saily has you covered with global and regional plans that work on both iOS and Android. And it's not just about connectivity. Saily also helps protect your privacy with features like web protection and ad blocking. And what I love about Saily is the peace of mind it brings. You don't have to worry about finding a local SIM card or risking scams. Just install once and stay connected wherever your travels take you. Plus, their 24/7 support means help is always available if you need it. Download the Saily app in your app store. Use the code GRID at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. Now, Mario, 34 drivers have won the Formula One World Championship over the last 75 years. You, of course, achieved that in 1978. Can you remember, not how it felt at Monza, because that was tinged with sadness with the death of Ronnie Peterson, but end of the year, you've gone back to the States, it's Christmas. Can you remember how you felt then, having achieved your boyhood ambition?
Well, you just said that achieved my boyhood ambition. When the dream began, it seemed like an absolute impossible dream. And as the the force that's more of a human force, that would decide this, as it happened, it had to happen in Monza. Can you imagine that? Even winning the Grand Prix in Monza, like the year before. I wanted that year too, and I was going to protest it, but it was not in us after, what happened to Ronnie in that race, because I thought I drove one of the best races of my career there with my brakes fading and so on and so forth, passing Villeneuve right on the last lap and then being penalized a minute. Anyway. No,
you remember it like yesterday, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. And but again, this was truly the probably the ultimate satisfaction, in my career as a race driver, mainly because it all began there, and then that was obviously what you dream about. You dream about the maximum, and what I was getting my inspiration was from current world champions at the time, Alberto Ascari. I want to be like Alberto Ascari, and that sort of thing. And as fate would have it, I even presented Antonio Ascari into the International Hall of Fame 2 years after I was inducted into International Hall of Fame. Posthumously, Alberto Ascari was also, and here I'm the one that presented the trophy to his son Antonio. I mean, can you imagine when you look back at those moments? The meaningful, how meaningful they were, obviously, in my life. So
crazy to think that he is Italy's only world champion, if excluding you. There's a little bit of me that wants to say, partly you in 78 as well, of course, with your Italian roots. But what kind of an influence did Ascari have on you?
I don't even know I can even qualify how powerful that was, because the way he was described by the media and so forth, there was something supernatural almost. And that was, how can a person be like that? Like you said, he had ice in his veins. I don't know what that means, but you know what? It sounded really good, even at that age for me. What does that mean? That as exciting as he was, cool and collected, and doing his job, things like that. So as a young lad, these are the things that impress you. I want to be like that.
Did you ever see him drive?
Oh yes, 1954 Monza. That was when I saw the very first Grand Prix. Some friends took Aldo and I to see that, and like I said, we even say the mold was cast at that point, and from there on there was no plan B in my life. Like I said, it seemed like it was like absolutely the impossible dream, but we never ever let go of that and pursue that immediately, every chance, every opportunity, and again, things just happen.
You were in your mid-teens when Ascari was killed at Monza. Can you remember the impact that had on you?
Tremendous, of course, but but he almost knew that it almost was going to have to happen, because there were so many other fatalities, in the sport, and but you say, how can that happen to him, and so forth. It's something that you cannot even explain, you cannot even reason out. But it was yes, and the worst part is that when Aldo and I expressed, when later teens, to pursue motor racing. My dad, for instance, if he'd look at us, he said, "You guys crazy? Look at all that. You lost Ascari. You're a hero. You want to be like him, and so on and so forth." So that's why when we started racing, we didn't dare even tell my dad, because he would have stopped it. Yes, I mean, he learned that my dad, and then that we were racing when on the very last race of that season. We had won a lot of races. That Aldo got hurt. Aldo was, was almost given his last rights.
Really?
The last race, yeah, and that's how he learned that we were racing.
So
and we were
what did he
underage. We were underage. Actually, we were 19. And in those days, you had to be 21. And we had the editor of the local newspaper, Les Young. he changed our birth date on the license. That's how we got away with it. But anyway.
What did your dad think you were doing when you were racing?
He had no
doing your paper
idea.
round?
He had no idea, because the language barrier is really what was saving us. Because even at work, we won. Aldo won the very first race. I won the second race. And we were winning races within a 150-mile radius, 3 different tracks, and we were in the papers, and at work. I know this came out later. The boss would say to my dad, "Gigi, your kids are really doing well." He had no idea what the guy was saying, the English.
Of course, because they were just in America.
Yeah. And that was our protection. Mom was caught in the middle. Moms
She knew.
know everything.
Moms
she knew.
know everything. Yeah.
She was caught in the middle.
Look, Mario, final thought on Ascari. He was paid the greatest compliment after his death by Juan Manuel Fangio, who said, "I've lost my greatest opponent." What made him so special?
Well, what makes Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, what makes champions like that special? Because they are. They accomplish something that very few people are capable of, and they have that aura, they have everything. And Alberto Ascari, obviously, he won in sports cars, he won in Formula One, and again, he just captured the imagination of the world, the fans around the world.
Let's jump forward now to the 60s, and to the man who really felt like your predecessor at Lotus, Jimmy Clark. You made your Formula One debut at Watkins Glen in '68 in effectively what was Jimmy's car after his death. When did you first meet Jimmy, and what do you think made him so special?
I met Jimmy in 1965. It was my rookie year at Indianapolis, and he had already raced there. He was Rookie of the year before, and then he won in '65, and I was Rookie of the Year then, and I got to know him, and I made it my project to get to know Jimmy and to get to know Colin Chapman. As a matter of fact, when we were saying our goodbyes after the banquet, Jimmy won, as you know, and I said to Colin, I said, Colin, someday I would like to do Formula One. And Colin looked at me and says, Mario, when you think you're ready, you call me, I will have a car for you.
Really?
Can you imagine, Tom, what that meant to me? And I needed to learn some road racing, proper road racing. And the Ford program for Le Mans obviously was born at that point in '65, '66. And I volunteered to be at every test. And one of the obviously top drivers that was part of the development was Bruce McLaren. Bruce McLaren and I became really close friends. And I remember, he was a very technical driver. I think on a high speed I had a bit of an edge, but he was very technical, and I learned so much from him. And after the testing day, we go out to dinner and so on and so forth. And then later on, the following '67, we won. As teammates, we won at Sebring and so on and so forth. So, and then I'm the one that lobbied like crazy to get IndyCar to do road racing. And in fact, in '65, they had one road race in a part of the series, and I won it. And it's like I said, some of the things, and I was, like I said, that was my objective now. And
So, Mario, you were lobbying IndyCar to do more road races to prepare you for Formula One. Have I read that right?
You got it. What else?
And you were ready, because when you made your debut in '68, you took pole position in your first race.
Yes, because, and just driven by pure desire, and I had never. A lot of people thought, "Well, it's your home track, Watkins." I had never seen Watkins Glen. I was as new as anyone there, but here again, I was fortunate to be with a top team. Colin Chapman and so on and so forth, and I did my thing, with that. So, and these are all the moments where you feel it gives you that. I don't know if you want to just call it confidence, but it gives you that feeling. I belong. I belong. It's so important. I mean, next to me was Jackie Stewart, with a current world champion. And then you have, some of the press said, well, we didn't expect this. I said, neither did I.
Look, final thought on Jimmy. I'm told that in the sort of mid-'60s in the UK, there were the Beatles and there was Jimmy Clark.
I got it.
What kind of a character was he?
Sweet man, really, really, very approachable, and again, I was, as a young lad, I was, maybe I go up, and I have some photos, that in my office that I cherish tremendously, and he and we could just chat in the pits just before we got in the car, because at Indy you have the luxury of spending a lot of time. And he, I was a rookie, but he would ask me questions about oval racing and, this and that, and we'd just talk. But
quiet, unassuming man is what I've been told.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, here again, and he was regarded, as the man, no question.
I love the stat. 25 wins from 72 starts in Formula One.
Yeah.
Only 1 second place.
Yeah.
Jimmy was win or bust kind of thing, wasn't
win or bust.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
You mentioned Jackie Stewart. I would love to ask you about him. When you think of Sir Jackie, what comes to mind?
Perfection again. You know, he, as a driver, you could see. I mean, the record speaks for itself. You know, he was one that you would want to emulate for sure, and is one, if you know, here again, if you can stay within his shadow on a racetrack, I think you're accomplishing something. You know, it's that level. You know, let's face it. Like I said, his record is amazing. You know, at the time.
Three-time world champion, 1969, 71, 73. What was he like to race? What was he like to go wheel to wheel with?
Correct. Very correct. Yes.
Someone you could trust.
He was smart. He was not one that would put himself or anyone in danger, for sure. Jackie was very correct.
And when you learned of his retirement at the end of 73, he was obviously the champion that year. Were you surprised that he retired at his peak?
Oh, yes, I was. I think everyone, the world was surprised, obviously. But, you know, this is a decision that only the individual can make. And, you know, when he lost Francois, his teammate, I think that just really affected him to the point that he has to be respected. You know, we all had that experience. I did too. And he felt, you know what, I don't want to be like that. And I respected that. But, you know, we all think differently.
Let's jump forward to the 80s now. And the man I would love to talk to you about is another three-time world champion who famously said, if you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. The great Ayrton Senna. Did you agree with his modus operandi, the way he went racing?
Of course.
He was a tough cookie, though.
You have to be. Yeah. But I mean, how can you argue with that? I mean, yeah, if you see an opportunity and you don't take it, I mean, let's face it. I mean, that's poetic justice there. I mean, look at his record. I mean, he's another one, you know, that is, you know, how could we lose someone like that, talent like that, you know? You see what I mean? It's all those things. So, but what he accomplished in his career, like I said, you know, just almost supernatural.
A supernatural talent. A supernatural feel for a racing car. Because those pole positions, 65 poles, there was something about a Saturday afternoon in the 80s and early 90s, wasn't it? Watching a quali lap of the great Ayrton Senna. Did he remind you of a Jimmy? Or was he different?
Well, everyone is a bit different, but it's all quality, a different type, but it's all quality. You know, it's all up here. And these are talents that are rare. You know, that they come up along every 10, 15, 20 years.
Did you know Ayrton?
Yes, I got to know him because my son Michael was his teammate, you know, so even though I was racing, you know, I did make a couple of races, and then I was in Monaco for the celebration for his World Championship and so on and so forth.
What was he like with you in that 93 season when they were together at McLaren?
Michael said he was the only one that he felt that respected Michael in that sense. And they got on very, very well, no question.
Our next partner is Indeed. You know that feeling when you realise you needed to hire someone yesterday? The pressure's on and you need to move fast. That's where Indeed comes in. Because when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen on other sites, use Indeed's sponsored jobs to stand out and hire fast. Your post moves right to the top for the most relevant candidates, so you connect with the right people quicker. And it makes a difference. Indeed data shows that sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed receive 45% more applications than non-sponsored ones. That kind of visibility is so effective. And what I love about Indeed is how streamlined and efficient it makes the whole hiring process. No more lengthy subscriptions or locked-in contracts. You just pay for results. And did I mention it's fast? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/grid. Just go to Indeed.com/grid right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/grid. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Let's bring it on to what I call the modern era now, because, of course, Schumacher wins the first of his 7 world titles in 1994. Him and Ayrton had raced against each other for a few years prior to Senna's death. They ruffled each other's feathers. I think it's fair to say that. Which of the styles did you admire the most? The way Schumacher went racing, the way Senna went racing?
Probably Senna. But how could you not admire Schumacher?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. There were some things that, some incidents that were, that were created there by Michael that sometimes left a little bit of a,
But maybe you could say the same about Senna, right?
Yeah.
In that, I'm thinking of Suzuka 89, Suzuka 1990.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Schumacher, of course, Adelaide 1994, Jerez 97, even qualifying at Monaco in 2006 when he parked at Rascas.
I know. And like I said, but, winners just want to win, regardless. I mean, as you say, you leave nothing on the table. If you know that it's reachable, it's attainable, if you will.
You race for Ferrari. You won your first race for Ferrari. Of course, there were those races in 82 at the end as well. How much do you admire the way Schumacher turned that team around? And because Ferrari is different, right? It's different to the British-based teams.
Well, let's face it. There was a period there that I don't think you'll ever see domination like that in Formula One again, to be honest with you. I mean...
what was the magic ingredient?
I wish we knew. I don't think you can... it's just something that clicked. It clicked all around, but it's not just him, the team. Everything clicked for him, and he had a supreme confidence, that just drove him, and everybody accepted second place. It seemed like, how are you going to beat Michael Schumacher? I mean, it was easy to bet on him, wasn't it?
Every era seems to have had that invincible driver. I mean, even in 78, when people saw your red and silver helmet in their mirror, did you get that feeling of invincibility? Almost like Moses, the sea was parting and you could just...
Well, here again, it's, yes, there are moments when you feel, it's very seldom, I mean, I got to say this, but sometimes you have to take today they have to beat me. I had that feeling a few times, which is a wonderful feeling of confidence, and because it relaxes you at the same time. And when you have the team, like I did several times, like even in '87 when I had Adrian Newey as my engineer, I figured they have to beat me, or I can beat myself. But you got that feeling, So, and it's not common feeling you have, but sometimes realistically, you feel that way. And I'm sure that Michael Schumacher had that feeling almost going to every race.
Do you think to win the World Championship repeatedly, you need to have one number one driver? Does it work having equal status? Because we're seeing a bit of that this year, aren't we? We've got Verstappen with Red Bull focused on him versus McLaren, who are split between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri.
Yes, I mean, that's a tough one. That's always a tough one when you have two capable winners in the same team, and where do you go from there? Only one can win. We've seen that. I think it was in '73 was with Emerson Fittipaldi and I think it was Ronnie Peterson. They were
Taking points
away from each other. Neither one won the championship.
Yeah.
And so I think the only way to deal with that, in my opinion, I'm not a team manager or anything, but I think you have to keep it open until about mid-season. And whoever's leading points in mid-season, that's the one that is number one. And then the other one has to relinquish and help.
But how demotivating is that for the other one?
I know. But what else do you do? Or go fight it to the end and then finish second and third to another champion. That's really what it is.
It kind of only works if you have the complete dominant car, right?
Yeah,
So think of Senna and Prost.
Yeah.
In the 80s in McLaren. But if it's a close fight, it's hard to disagree with you, Mario, about both that and many other
This is
things.
a situation I think that McLaren is dealing with right now. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. I mean, but at the same time, it will become critical decisions somewhere along the line, and I wouldn't want to be the one to make that decision, quite honestly.
Now, look, talking of decisions, Mario, it's been such a wonderful chat looking back. Can we now just throw it forward? Cadillac coming into Formula One in 2026. Huge news. Huge news for Cadillac, huge news for Formula One, of course. It's the first time GM have been in Formula One. Just describe what it means.
Tom, you don't have to tell me how excited I am about this. I was just talking with Mark Royce, Cadillac, this morning, and I was telling him that I took him back to 1967, Riverside, California, Can-Am race, and Zora Duntov, the father of the Corvette, he and I actually gravitated because we were both immigrants, him from Belgium, me from Italy, and we did good in racing and so forth. And I would say, and to Zora, Ford is investing in Formula One. General Motors has to do that. He said, Mario, I speak, nobody hear me. And, and just to have this happen now, and Cadillac embracing Formula One the way they are, and trust me, they are. The technical side, I mean, I see nothing but smiles there. Is so rewarding, for someone like me that just, I can go back. And so this is a very wonderful historic moment for America to have the biggest manufacturer officially in Formula One. And but I see that top management is smiling about it. That's a good thing. That's a good thing for the sport.
And what is your role?
My role is to really enjoy it.
Which I know you will.
Basically, just
can we call you an advisor?
Just advising capacity, basically. Where I fit in, it's the driver's side. If I can just give some opinions, in that respect, that's really where I like. I don't want to be the one writing the checks. I don't want to be a day-to-day, but I'm loving the aspect that I'm invited to be part of it, and looking forward to the action.
Talking of drivers, it feels like here in Miami that the rumor mill about who's going to be racing for Cadillac has gone up a notch. Obviously, I'd love you to tell me who's racing for them, but I think it's probably too early for that. But do you think youth and experience works as a combination? Is that the sort of thing we might see?
I think you will see that. I think that's the objective, but you have to keep your options open, in every way until the very last moment, if you will. You look at the pool, what's available, and as Graham Lawton said, as a team principal, he said it's going to go on merit, and there are some choices, obviously, luckily available. And there's a lot of rumor around and so forth. We together we're evaluating every aspect of it. And but as you mentioned, youth and experience, and it could be both young actually and experience. But experience is it's essential, and with a startup team especially. But at the same time cultivating talent that looks very promising, especially hopefully on the American side.
Yeah.
It would be very appealing, of course.
Colton Herta, IndyCar driver, has been linked in the past with a switch to Formula One. I'm not asking you to confirm whether he's driving for Cadillac, but do you think he's ready for an opportunity in Formula One? I
feel so. He had a wonderful test at Portimao
for McLaren.
For McLaren, it was really. I read the report on that, and from Stella, from Andrea Stella, and it was really. He really wants it, and we will see. However, it's again, we're just keeping our options open.
He was Lando Norris's teammate.
Yes, I know.
In the UK, and I think British Formula 4.
Yes.
And I asked Lando about him a few years back, actually. It was year one, I think, here in Miami. And his memory of having Colton as a teammate was, he said, he's really brave. He's really quick through the quick corners. So he's probably brilliant on the ovals, right?
Well, actually, no, he's a great road racer. Actually, I thought that the last couple of years, I think he really came around much better on the ovals. But I think he to me, that's where he was shining on the road courses.
Well, youngest ever winner, wasn't he?
The youngest ever winner. And not by strategy, by speed, pure speed. I was watching that. His wins have been pure speed, so that says something.
Okay. Look, final one on Cadillac. You've got a base in the UK at Silverstone. I think there's a base also in Indianapolis. Is that right?
Yes.
How's the split going to work?
It's going to work.
But in terms of what is based where?
Well, actually, all the movements, everything is going to be from England,
Okay.
No question. But some manufacturers, some other things are going to be happening here. But, you have to be, the logistical side is obviously everything, the preparation for the events and everything else is going to be, from Silverstone.
Yep. It's a huge ask, isn't it? Because you're building a new team at a time when there's a huge regulation change. I suppose it's not a regulation change for you because you're just got the one set of regs to deal with. But how big an ask is it to be coming into F1 at this point?
To be honest with you, it's if you're going to come in from the cold, if you will, this is the best situation where everybody's starting with a clean sheet of paper. It would be much more difficult to come in, say now with the current rules that have been in effect for several seasons, where everything is refined. Every team has the ultimate. On that, I think it's a better situation. It makes more sense. And we'll see. It's everybody's just trying. Everybody's going to be trying their level best. We all know. It's a huge challenge. But everybody's embracing it with a lot of fervor.
Well, Mario, it's going to be great because I hope we'll see you at more races next year.
Yes.
So look forward to that. Mario, I've so loved chatting to you. I really feel I could talk to you all day about racing. But we've got to bring it to an end. Can I ask you this as a last question? It's something I'm asking everybody on the pod this year. 75th birthday of Formula One. That's what we've been discussing. Is there one moment, one memory that stands out for you? It can either be your career or it can be something not associated to you at all.
Well, again, I think something that we discussed. I was born loving Formula One, obviously, and I pursued my impossible dream, and I was able to achieve that ultimately, even though my career started in a different direction. But again, I just feel that I'm blessed in the best possible way in my life.
What do you think the F1 of the future is going to look like? We're celebrating 75 years now. What about the 100th anniversary? What is Formula One going to look like then?
Oh my goodness. I hope that they don't have self-driving cars.
That won't happen, I'm sure. Mario, thank you so much for your time. Great to see you.
Thank you.